Hi guys, here I am. It's Chat with Matt. A little bit close to the camera. Let's get back. I need to angle down a bit too. Chat with Matt. It's episode 14. Today is the 10th of April here in New Zealand, 2019. I'm live. I can see. My computer's just told me. Awesome. So, any requests, anything you wish to know, please feel free to share it with me. Of course, you can't yet because there's very few people on. As you find your way on and you can't hear this. Hey, Sister Jen, how are you? You sound like you're in awesome form today. Well done. So, got a couple of things to talk about here already. Please feel free to add anything in as we go along, and I'll do my best. If I miss it as it scrolls through, please be willing to write it again, because I can't claim to be super vigilant. Anywho's, so let's start with Sister Sylvie's little request here, which we have talked a little bit about before, but is good to remember. So anyway, Sylvie wrote in and said, I can't kick off the depressed state and find my motivation for things that I usually love. Hey Jen, how are you? Welcome. So it's Jen Funt. So I've got Jen Burns and Jen Funt on. Welcome. I've got a pair of Jens. Awesome. That's an interesting trend. We'll see how far we go with that. Anyway, things that I usually love. I've lost interest and it's staying longer than usual in spite of the medication that has just maintained me in a neutral state. Hard to motivate myself for any action. Don't know what to do. She goes on, but I'm going to, another comment, but the point is right now to say don't know what to do. It's to find acceptance and allowance that you're going through a process, and the fact that you feel depressed and not motivated is a great opportunity to rest and allow yourself to go through the process. Now, I know there's a fine line between getting stuck in it, right, which is the fear when you're in depression that it's never going to lift and you feel that you need to push your way out of it. And I know you've got a lot of experience with this, Sylvie, and I know you don't want to go back to where you've been in other phases of your life where depression has stayed for months on end. But what you resist will persist, right? So take some deep breaths and allow yourself to relax into the experience you're having. Allow yourself to really feel the experience you're having without the judgment that it's wrong and you're supposed to fix this. I know that's not easy when you don't enjoy, when it's not comfortable being where you are. No one enjoys feeling depressed, sad, unmotivated, because it's very easy to feel hopeless, useless, worthless in that space, right? Something I know well about. Even though it didn't come to me exactly through the levels of depression you're talking about, my levels of depression were much more low level and sustained, I guess. Anywho's, the point is to relax into this, and to just do what you feel to do in the moment without measuring yourself, without measuring how good you're doing in terms of productivity, in terms of even in terms of how you're feeling, right? Because the truth is, my friends, all of us, how we are feeling is not who we are, right? How we are feeling is more a representation of what we are releasing. So when we're feeling ugly, it's actually a good sign, right? I've got a couple of, I've already answered a couple of an email and a messenger this morning around people feeling very concerned with the level of discordance they're feeling, right? You know, one was, I feel so sad, so down, it feels like my heart is breaking, it feels like I'll never receive love again. And my response is great, fantastic, this is what you're releasing, this level of sadness. It feels like your heart's breaking, but what's really breaking is the wall that you've maintained around your heart to keep yourself safe from feeling. That's what's breaking. And all of the pain that you've protected yourself against, you are now feeling. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate because we can only experience the level of love that we're willing to experience the level of pain. If we're not willing to experience pain, we can't experience love, right? We narrow ourselves down. We box ourselves up in protection and it robs us of experiencing the life that we came here embodied into human form to experience, which is a life of feeling and duality and all sorts of funky experiences that are hard to justify, for want of a better word, Anyway, so as we go on, Sylvie wrote in response to someone else saying, I find going for a walk and taking some photos and stuff really helps when I'm like that, which is fantastic advice, because it's true, right? If you're feeling low and depressed, then sometimes getting out and going for a walk, breathing deep, basically getting in nature, taking yourself out of your container that is resonating back sadness and vibration, dense vibrations to you when you're staying in the same, to change your scene is often a good way of helping you out of helping transformation to occur. Walking, exercise, breathing deep, nature, all combined together really helps to shift moods, to shift any energy. I'm just back from, 4 days walking, or 3 days walking really, out in the mountains, and it's a good time for change. Not always easy because a lot of stuff can come up. I might talk about that a bit later. I've been up Hopeless Creek, literally. Anyway, so Sylvie went in response to Jeanette's request, said, "Thank you. My guidance says that I am getting rewired and I can't be productive right now." So exactly, fantastic, right? Rewired is basically releasing the bullshit from the past, and you can't be productive. So just need to release and release and release, and it can take a while before I find the impulse to do something which could be something different of what I am used to doing. I wish I would believe my guidance more that everything is going to be okay when I'm dragging myself like this. So you've got the answer, and all you really need to do is relax into that guidance, right? It's there. You just, you would move through the process of rewiring much more quickly if you stopped measuring yourself up against what you quote unquote think you should be, which is productive, because that's how we've been trained. Our society trains us all to think that productivity, doing things, producing things, or consuming things, right? But being active in our society is very, very important and good and right. But it's not. The people who have trained us to be that way do it so that they can profit from us being that way. So relax into just being who you are. Allow yourself to be sad and depressed and a vibration of release, because you are benefiting the whole society immensely by allowing yourself to go through that process. Benefiting the whole cosmos by allowing yourself to go through that process. So relax into it. Okay, Brother Lou wrote in also and just mentioned a few things around nutrition and all of that, dopamine, and it's all true, right? We can do a lot of work to help our moods and our stress levels by maintaining nutrition that supports our endocrine system and our nervous system. But it's a big topic and I'm not about to launch into that right now. But there's plenty of information out there. But the most important thing to remember is to follow your heart through all of that, not get caught up in the shoulds. Read all of that information, looking for what really speaks to you. Because like all subjects, there's information and there's information and there's information. Some of it's contradictory, right? Of course. Some of it's contradictory. A lot of it's contradictory. And what's right and what's wrong is very individual for each person, right? You can follow someone's protocol to the letter and it doesn't help you at all, because even though your symptomology looked like what they were talking about, there was something different behind it. So it's a matter of being very intuitive and allowing ourselves to explore all sorts of options, be willing to try things, but always maintain an open mind, let go of the shoulds, and be relaxed and allow our guidance to come through and to modify different people's ideas and stuff. Also, Brother Lou pointed out that we are going into Jupiter retrograde, and we've been on this crazy roller coaster, right? And it's going to continue. There's all sorts of cosmic help for us to for our transformation, and a lot of it is stirring the pot. Our external world down here, our financial system, our political systems, our education systems, our medical systems, goodness gracious, right, are all in disarray at the moment, and it's perfect. It's perfect. It's messy, it's scary, it's triggering, but that's all perfect for what we're going through right now, which is a massive transformation on a huge level, out of our heads into our hearts. That doesn't mean we're going to stop thinking altogether, but we just need to shift our point of concentration back to our hearts. Awesome. So fantastic. Thank you, Sylvie, and everyone who added into that. But this is a great question because it's very relevant for what I'm going through right now, as in right now. Well, not right now, but over the last 24 hours. This is from Meg, who wrote in, can you address the idea of allowing our kids to be who they are? My daughter is smart and creative and funny and faithful and loving, but she is also impulsive and loud and rude and inflexible. Right? And I think I wrote perfect. Perfect, which it is, right? So this is it. All of what you point out there, smart, creative, funny, faithful, loving, impulsive, loud, rude, and inflexible, are judgments. They're judgments. They are categories that you have been trained to label, right? Even smart and creative, right? We see something and we label it as smart or creative or whatever, but it's just a training. It's just a training. Hey, Deb, how are you, sister? So it's just a training. So it is really beneficial for us to find allowance for not just our kids, but everyone to be who they are without trying to stuff them into boxes. Particularly as you go on and you label some of the things that you quote unquote don't like about her, impulsive, which can be good or bad, right? But from a parent's point of view, looking at their children, impulsive is dangerous, right? We think it's dangerous. And loud and rude, again, while we might not appreciate it, more to the point, most of the time we're judging that because we're worried that society won't accept that, right? That loud and rude is somehow dangerous and not going to help them succeed and be happy in the world. And inflexible, which again is judgment. Hey, Sister Emily Rose, we're talking about how we can allow our kids to be who they are. So how do we allow our kids to be who they are? We have to relax, right? How do we find acceptance? We relax into accepting ourselves. The truth is, Sister Meg, and all of us, whenever we judge someone or something else that's external to us, we are basically doing so because what they are is triggering an non-acceptance that we're holding against ourselves. We generally judge people and things the harshest when their situation is something that is close to us. Awesome that you've just let your son sleep, Deb. And it has been hard energy. Hey, Sister Trina. Welcome. So how do we find more and more acceptance? It does require a level of, I don't want to use the word discipline again, commitment. So it requires a level of commitment to maintain awareness when we are doing it, right? When we notice their behavior and we want to put a label on it. Now, the important thing is, Jen wrote a beautiful article this morning on Facebook, or a post on Facebook around the idea that allowance is not tolerance, right? Just tolerating something because you think you're supposed to is not really what we're talking about when we're talking about finding allowance, right? Because if you're still holding resistance towards or judgment towards what they're doing and you just think you're supposed to tolerate it, that is going to break down, right? The level of resentment that you build up around this, tolerating till the dam bursts and it gets ugly. It's a time bomb. Toleration is a time bomb. so there's two aspects, and generate this perfectly this morning. When you're looking at behavior that irritates you, annoys you, that you find quote unquote judgeable, when you find yourself judging someone else's behavior, first thing is to inquire is, why are you judging it, right? One, is it something in you that needs quote unquote acceptance? You accept yourself around this. Or two, is it really something that is not beneficial towards you, right? And you do need to maintain boundaries there. You do need to communicate there. You do need to have open, honest discussions around their behavior not suiting you and what can be done about that, right? Obviously, with someone like a child, our children, whether they are still young or adult, doesn't really matter, but we can't, it's not so, well, especially if they're still young, we can't just, we can't end that relationship. That's a relationship that's pretty much there to be stuck through. And so it's a matter of working with honest, open communication, right? And to understand why they are choosing to behave the way they choose and help them understand why that behavior doesn't suit you, and then work towards achieving a beneficial outcome, which is going to take time. It's not like you have one conversation and it's all supposed to be fixed, because there's habits involved. And many of those habits are coping mechanisms for dealing with people's underlying shit, right? People are quite often loud, impulsive, and rude, right, to cover over their insecurities, right? They're scared that they're not good enough. And so they use this bulky, arrogant exterior to cover over their little child that's scared. So they always want to be inflexible, right? They always need to be right, because if they accept that they're wrong, then their mental construct falls away and they feel very vulnerable and exposed, right? Because they don't have a level of confidence in themselves to be able to deal with being wrong. And so they become very inflexible, and it's my way or the highway, and I'm not going to shift on that, right? Because I'm unable to do it and emotionally maintain my sense of security in the world. That's not always why people are loud, rude, and inflexible, by the way. That is just one possibility. This is not a not a one size fits all diagnosis of the situation, and it might not be appropriate for your daughter at all, Meg. I'm just pointing out that everyone's behavior is a result of their history and the wounds that they're basically carrying and trying to cope with. All of us are doing this. All of us are trying to cope with the trauma that we're carrying from the past. And so, yeah, awesome, Trina. I'm glad you got that. Allowance is not tolerance. But allowance is understanding why they are doing it, right? Is to understand that there is a reason that they're doing it, and they're not just a wrong person. They're not just a bad person. They're not just an evil person, right? They're doing it as a result of their history, and everyone can heal from that. Everyone can evolve from that space if they're willing to be accepting of themselves. And so to help our children accept themselves, we need to love them, right? We need to love them and to remind them that they are good enough as they are, so that they can evolve out of potential behaviors that they're using as coping mechanisms, so that they can basically be happier in the world and more effective and more fun to be around as well, right? Fun to be around as well. Where am I up to? Allowing our kids to be who they are. So that's it. It's about, and so two sides here. So the first bit that I skimmed over was looking into ourselves and seeing, why is their behavior triggering us? Because quite often it's our stuff. And obviously, most cases is not one or the other, but always a mix of both our stuff and their stuff and the trigger that's happening between it. But it's important to recognize where it's based, because sometimes it's more our stuff and some of their stuff and the overlap, and sometimes it's more their stuff triggering some of our stuff and the overlap. And it's not, you don't need to mentalize this out, but it's important that you look at both sides of the equation always, right? If someone's annoying you, it's not that they're totally right and you're totally wrong, or you're totally right and they're totally wrong. And it's not right or wrong here, but it's basically who's carrying the majority of the discordance here that's playing out in a relationship that doesn't seem to be comfortable, right? The relationship's not comfortable. It might be beneficial that you're being triggered, merry hell, but it's certainly not comfortable. And so when you're experiencing discomfort, it's appropriate to inquire a little bit as to why am I so uncomfortable around that person. And of course your ego wants to say, because they are this, this, and this. But it's like, why is that annoying you, right? Oh, because they're wrong for being. No, they're being who they are as a reflection of themselves. And the point that it's triggering you is an indication that you're carrying a lot of stuff there that could potentially be released so that you can be much more happy in whatever situation you're in. It's not about, again, tolerating them and putting up with a bunch of behavior that really doesn't serve you, right? But you're quite welcome to remove yourself from that situation or negotiate better conditions, but to do it from a space where you're not trying to avoid your pain, right? You're not trying to just sweep the fact that it's really triggering you under the carpet, make it all of their problem, and then dump it on them or wipe them away, try and avoid them completely. It's if you're feeling triggered by something, there's something there for you, and you don't need to get terribly mental around it. All you need to do is relax into acceptance that, wow, there's something in this behavior that I'm not complete with. And so the more that you can breathe and relax and allow yourself to release what's being triggered, the better off you're going to be, right? The better off you are going to be. And it is a process and it is achievable. You have to be willing to maintain some patience and to move forward with that, and I'll talk a little bit more about our kids and how highly charged that relationship is, because we all want our kids to be happy. We all want our kids to be successful. We all want our kids to be, most of us, we all want to have a good relationship with our children, right? Someone who we've invested an enormous amount of energy in from, for many, many years, well, depending on how old the child is, right? But there's a lot of energy gone into raising that child. And so, I'm just dealing with a 17-year-old child who came home last night after crashing his car. His clutch is on the way out. There's a whole heap of energy going on around that and his vibration coming up, which I can see very, very clearly, similar to mine, hopeless, useless, worthless. Everything's falling apart for him at the moment. Just over 17 years old. He's got his, he's working now and all the rest of it. It's a difficult time. It's a really, really difficult time. And it's easy for him to throw his hands in the air. And he slept in this morning. So he's left late for work in my car. And so obviously I'm sitting there doing my meditation after I know he left late and I know he was in a hurry in my car because his car's here crashed and needing a new clutch, and it's coming up for Easter and the motor mechanics are busy and he was going to do it himself and yada, yada, yada. Right, there's a whole gamut of triggering energy around here, and I'm sitting in my meditation and I'm just seeing it all and I'm reliving it all from my own, 17, 18, 19-year-old self of feeling like, I can't do anything right and everything's going wrong for me, and obviously I'm not a good, right, proper person because I'm making mistakes, right? Because he's making mistakes, and that's how we learn, How do you learn that your car doesn't steer well on wet grass with your foot on the brake? Well, you do it, right? You pull off the road onto the wet grass, put your foot on the brake and slide straight into a fence post. I've done it. Now he's done it, right? So you learn. You learn. Taking out your headlight and your indicator and put a big smash in the front of your car. Allowing yourself to get triggered. And so what I was dancing with this morning in my meditation right after he'd left is worry, right, and concern. And I was flip-flopping around between holding space and compassion and holding him in love and empathizing in an empowered way for him to feel okay about the fact that he's making mistakes and he's, just cost himself a lot of money and all of the rest of it. And also, and I'm dancing with my own trigger around that and what it reminded me of. And I've just been through that on this last weekend. I went on a walk, and while there was nothing external to really trigger it all, just the fact that we were walking up Hopeless Creek to Hopeless Hut under Mount Hopeless, I went through this amazing cleanse of hopelessness. This amazing cleanse of hopelessness, which was almost farcical in a way, because there was no real good reason for it. No external good reason. I wasn't making mistakes. I wasn't under pressure. I was actually a very relaxed, open space, which held a space for all of this to bubble to the surface and for me to go through a real test of acceptance and allowance and maintaining self-love, while all sorts of ugly vibrations arose from within, right? Or a lot of my hopeless, not good enough was arising to look at, and I'm out there walking, and there's all sorts of thoughts bouncing around my business, right? What I do for making money and my passion, right? And the pressure I feel to quote unquote succeed, or at least to make enough money to survive, and all of the rest of it was very, very, very interesting, uncomfortable, interesting. And so we have to be willing, all of us have to be willing to go through that process. If you just want to sweep it all under the carpet and think that if you just keep doing whatever, listening to some MP3, no matter how powerful the light language MP3 might be, or any other MP3, and think that it's just going to wipe away your discordance, and all of a sudden you're going to have all of your problems vanish and you'll have plenty of money, plenty of health, plenty of loving relationships, you're a little bit deluded. I'm to say, MP3s and all of the work, is very important to help lubricate and loosen up this stuff. But ultimately, we have to be willing to face it, to breathe our way through it, to find acceptance, and to maintain a relaxation, e.g. not a stress. It's about self-acceptance. Accepting that we're carrying all of this BS from the past actually allows it to release much more easily, Freedom comes through a process of acceptance, not through a process of fighting. I've been meaning to put up a little, a meme that says something a lot. I know it's quite triggering, but for a lot of people, there's a lot of talk about gun laws and all the rest of it going on. And I can see, multiple levels of this, and the fear of what, being overrun by our quote-unquote governments, or the people who control our governments. But the point is, if you think you need weapons to maintain your freedom, you don't have freedom, right? If you think you need a weapon, any sort of weapon, to maintain your freedom, then you don't yet have freedom, right? Because once you have freedom, you know that nothing can take it off you. Oh yeah, shit, people can kill you, people can throw you in prison, but that doesn't take away your freedom. I'm not saying having a weapon is wrong at all, by the way. I'm saying if you think you need to have a weapon to maintain, the word need, right? If you think you need to have a weapon to maintain your freedom, then you don't yet have freedom, right? When you have true freedom, you can have a weapon or not. You might be prepared to use the weapon to do what you feel is the most beneficial in that time, but you're not dependent on your weapon to maintain your ultimate freedom, because you've got that in your heart, you've got that in your spirit, and that's who you are. Anyway, I'm not quite sure how I got to that point, but finding allowance for people who are in our lives, our children, or whoever, is a process, and it's a process of our own self-discovery, and it's a process of maintaining relationship, right? There's a relationship between ourselves and our children that requires all of the things that any relationship requires. Number one is good, clear, honest, heartfelt, compassionate communication. Being willing to find the time, make the time, create the conditions that are conducive, which I know is not easy always with children. They always have a reason why they don't want to be talking to their parents, especially as they're into their latter teenage years. But making that conducive space, which might require a little bit of pre-planning, that you can have good, open, honest communication. And be willing to look at both sides of every equation, right? It's never just about their behavior being wrong or inappropriate. And that doesn't say that their behavior is not inappropriate, right? But there'll always be something for you to work on that's behind that as well. So the more that you can recognize your own trigger points, the more you can keep your communication very clear so that they can see that it's going to benefit them to change their behavior. Them to really see why their behavior is not conducive for their happiness. That's all it should be about, right? It's not about respecting you, right? Respect is bullshit. Respect is earned and it comes through time. You cannot teach respect. You cannot expect respect. You can't expect respect. Just because you're someone's parent doesn't mean that they should respect you. If your behavior is not worthy of their respect, then it's not. It's as simple as that, right? Now, they might be a little bit effed up and not able to find respect for them, but making it a rule that they should expect is not going to help them learn respect. Help them find respect for themselves and they will respect you. Help them understand that you're there to serve them, to help them grow into their own respect for themselves, and they will respect you. But to demand respect is never going to work, not today. It worked 50 years ago, it maybe even worked 20 years ago, but it won't work today because the energy of today is freedom. And any rule around having to respect someone based on seniority is not going to hold true. I'm sorry, I know a lot of you think that respect is very, very important, and it is, but you can't demand it based on nothing. It has to come through action. Anyway, my friends, that's our half an hour. We're done. Much, much love to you all. I had a bunch of stuff I could have talked about, business. Come to Bali, why don't you? I dare you. I dare you. Start meditating, I dare you. Join the Montara Transformation and Empowerment Support Community, I dare you, right? If you want to change your life, please invest in yourself and allow yourself to be supported and allow yourself to be inspired and allow yourself to be continually reminded to breathe, right? I talked, I think 2 weeks ago about setting your alarm or the thing on your computer. I've got the bell of mindfulness, I think that's what it's called, that bings bell of mindfulness. If you spend a lot of time on a computer, then you can use that. If you spend more time out and about, use your phone, set it to go off every certain amount of time, half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours. Take some time to breathe, recenter yourself, and remind yourself of who you are beyond the bullshit that you're dealing with. Anyway, my friends, much, much love to you all. I will speak to you again soon. If you have any questions at all about anything, write me an email or reach out on Facebook. We're here to serve you all. Much, much love. Bye for now. Bye-bye.